Somewhere along the way, you already made the choice, and you didn't even realize it. That's the part no one really talks about. We imagine life-changing decisions as these huge, obvious turning points, something you can point to. But more often, it's subtle. It's routine. It's the day you avoided something small because it felt uncomfortable. It's the way you kept saying later to something that actually mattered. Not dramatic, but directional. And that direction, it becomes your life. It's not a single big decision that shapes the next 5 years. It's a pattern. One that starts quietly with a simple question you're probably not even aware you're answering. Do I move toward what's difficult? Or do I step back the moment it gets uncomfortable? That's the real fork in the road. And it keeps showing up. One path builds you. The other keeps you distracted. One path forces clarity. Forces you to grow, focus, decide. The other just fills your calendar with noise. One leads to a version of you that's more resilient, more aware, more fully alive. The other slowly turns you into someone who's just managing, just coping. And here's what's brutal about it. Most people don't feel stuck because something's gone wrong. They feel stuck because they've slowly, quietly stopped moving toward what they really want. They started pulling back a little, taking shortcuts, hesitating at just the wrong time. And they never realized that moment when they flinched was the moment. That's the choice that echoes. But it's not irreversible. What if you could trace that feeling back to the moment it started? What if you're not stuck, but just mid-pattern? What if you could catch it, interrupt it, reset? Because here's the deeper truth. Your brain isn't wired to lead you toward growth. It's wired to lead you toward safety. It sees effort as risk, discomfort as danger. It rewards the easier option, not because it's better, but because it's familiar. Unless you see the pattern for what it is, you'll keep repeating it. But if you can understand the system underneath, how your habits, your nervous system, and your thinking are all linked to that one quiet choice, you can take the wheel again. And that's where we're going. The brain isn't just wired for comfort, it's built to defend it. It wants patterns, predictability, anything that feels familiar. So when you're about to stretch beyond that, take a risk, start something new, confront something uncomfortable, your system doesn't just hesitate. It pushes back. You feel it physically. Heart beating faster. Shoulders tense. Your thoughts try to rationalize the easy way out. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. Effort costs energy. Your brain knows this. It sees uncertainty as expensive and discomfort as a threat. So it quietly pushes you toward the cheaper option, the one that keeps you safe, still, steady. That's how drift starts. You don't choose it actively. You just delay. You scroll. You tell yourself you'll decide tomorrow. But that pause becomes a pattern, and the pattern becomes your path. And the world makes that path easy. It rewards comfort. No one questions you for playing it safe. People call it being realistic, being grounded. You get praised for staying the course, even when you know the course is leading you somewhere you never meant to go. And over time, that safety turns into identity. You start avoiding effort not because it's hard, but because it doesn't feel like you. You've taught yourself to stay small, to pull back, to tolerate less from life. Not with one big decision, but with dozens of small ones you never thought mattered. But here's where it flips. Every time you step toward discomfort on purpose, something in your wiring shifts. You still feel the nerves. You still feel the doubt. But you move anyway, and that action tells your brain, this is who I am now. Not someone who waits. Not someone who hesitates. Someone who chooses despite the fear. That shift, tiny as it feels, starts compounding. Confidence builds. Clarity sharpens. And suddenly the things that once felt too far out of reach start to feel like options. So what's actually happening in that moment of pivot? When discomfort stops being the enemy and starts becoming the signal, that's where the change locks in, and where everything starts to tilt forward. There's a moment, not loud, not dramatic, where the shift begins. You catch yourself in the middle of the usual pattern, the scroll, the hesitation, the overthinking. But this time you pause. You feel the pull toward the easy option and you step the other way. Not because you're certain. Not because you feel ready. Just because something inside you refuses to keep drifting. And that one move, it changes everything. It doesn't look like a breakthrough. It doesn't feel like a movie moment. You're not suddenly fearless or full of clarity. You're just a little more awake. A little more in control. And that's the turning point when you stop reacting and start choosing again. Not once, but deliberately, repeatedly, until it stops feeling foreign and starts feeling like you. That's what most people miss. Growth doesn't come with fireworks. It arrives in silence, in decisions no one sees, in saying no to what's easy, not because it's bad, but because it keeps you small. And every time you do that, your internal compass starts to recalibrate. You stop measuring your days by how easy they felt and start measuring them by how real they were, how aligned they were, how much of you actually showed up. Because here's the reveal. That one choice, discomfort over drift, it rewires how you see yourself. And how others respond to you changes too. You carry yourself differently. You speak with more weight, not louder, but with clarity. Because you're not trying to be convincing, you're just living what you've chosen. That's how people build momentum. Not by doing more, but by doing the right thing repeatedly. Even when it's boring. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when no one's watching. Especially then. Because that's when the foundation sets. Quietly, consistently in the background of your life. And from that foundation, everything else. Opportunity, confidence, relationships, growth starts to rise. Slowly at first, then all at once. So what does your life look like when that shift becomes permanent? Let's bring it all together. So what does life actually look like after the shift? Not in theory, but in reality. It doesn't turn cinematic. You don't suddenly wake up with all the answers. You still face doubt. You still have bad days. The fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip. What changes is how you meet it. That pause before the old habit kicks in, you start to notice it. You catch the hesitation. And instead of folding, you lean in. Even if just a little. Even if it's messy. That's the moment. That's the win. Because it's not about being fearless, it's about moving anyway. And when you do that, your brain learns something new. I can trust myself here. That rewires everything. Your confidence? It stops being something you find. It becomes something you earn. Not from validation. Not from outcomes. But from evidence. You've faced things before and you didn't run. That sticks deeper than motivation ever could. And emotionally, there's a shift too. You begin to feel more present. Not because life slows down, but because you stop rushing past it. You start choosing conversations instead of avoiding them. You stop waiting for clarity and begin building it. You start measuring your days not by how smooth they felt, but by how fully you showed up in them. And socially, something shifts around you too. People feel the difference. You're not louder. You're not flashier. You're just more anchored, more solid. Because you're not chasing the next external thing to feel okay. You're building the kind of inner alignment that doesn't need constant proof. And that quiet strength, it moves things. Opportunities respond to it. So do people. This is the part most people miss. They want to change their life, but they try to start out there. With outcomes. With results. But real change starts in here with one repeated decision: move toward discomfort on purpose. Not for pain's sake, but for growth. For expansion. For the future version of you who needs you to stop playing small today. So yes, this one choice really can shape your next 5 years. Because the decision becomes your direction. And direction is everything. It decides what you learn, who you meet, what you tolerate, what you stop tolerating. And all of that becomes the shape of your life quietly, invisibly, over time. And maybe you don't know if you're on the right path yet. Maybe you've already been drifting for a while. But if you're hearing this right now and it's making something in your chest feel heavy or awake, that is the moment. That's the choice. Right now.